Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. Today, news topic we're going to talk about is the question, what if ICE doesn't leave the airports? We know ICEs are in the airports now, but the thing that we want to talk about is what if they don't leave because they were and they have been always there. It was always part of their job. And what if it expands more into schools, public schools, elementary schools, hospitals, places of worship? Is that the road that we're on? We're going to talk about that during the news segment and the impact that that's having on people, on the conversations that we're having off the camera during the consultations, people changing jobs, people quitting, and ultimately people leaving. That is the news segment. And then the second part, we're going to focus on a success story about a E2 investor. It's a kitchen cabinet hardware store. They got the E2 denied. We were able to help them get their B1, B2 visa to come back into the U.S., improve it, and then get their E2 again. So that's a recent success story. We just got that approved like last month. And these stories we're going to talk side by side. And the connection is actually wasn't expected, but it came up in a conversation last night. We'll get to that in a bit. But during this entire time when we're talking about the news and talking about the success story, feel free to ask questions, right? We're going to block off certain moments, and then we'll answer all the questions on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Feel free to let us know. Galen will read out the question. I'll repeat it, and we'll share with you. And this entire, hour-long session, we'll be able to post on our YouTube channel, so you can rewatch that if you want, right? So the main news is about ICE agents at airports. I know the headline is because TSA agents are not being paid, and so ICE agents are there helping to facilitate to crowd control. I think it goes so much deeper than what we're seeing. ICE agents are already routinely getting the travel lists from the TSA agents, right? Who's traveling? Does anybody have removal order? And if they do, ICE agents can already go and pick up people at the domestic airports. This happened even far before the Trump administration. CBP officers routinely call ICE agents to pick people up. I've had clients myself that we had to prepare everything, and we know they were going to get picked up because they have an arrest warrant. They fly into the country, and then CBP officer at the international airports call the ICE agents. We talk about it, prepare it. It's like, sorry, this client already has a green card. I know there was a mix-up. Please let them in. We explain. We go to for inspection, and it comes in. So the customs officer at international airports have been calling ICE agents. The TSA agents have been calling ICE agents. ICE agents have been in and out of international and domestic airports, but now it is in a much more visible format where when you're checking in at the security line, they are there. You see them walking around. You see them doing crowd control. It is not sightly. It is scary. It is concerning, especially for many people who are not citizens. And the reason is because we see green card holders, people who are on visas, student visas, work permits. We have seen them get harassed and detained by ICE agents unlawfully, right? People who have just minor traffic violations 10 plus years ago. That is not a deportable, removable offense under any law. Yet the ICE last year sent out tens of thousands of messages saying all of their visas have been canceled. Yes, it is true that ICE agents and that department has control over international students. But to do things without almost thinking and then they're reversing it, it is traumatizing. And what we've seen in the past few months of ICE agents, whether they're not trained, whether they are hired incorrectly, whether they are themselves traumatized and they're reacting in force, but it led to deaths of US citizens, deaths of green card holders, people who are on visas and then they get detained and they die at the detention center. Basically, this entire institution of ICE and detaining people is causing rupture throughout society. And now being visibly in the airport is magnifying that. And the question we're posing is, are they going to stay visible? Are they going to continue to enhance the domestic airports Are they going to continue to be in domestic airports? Are they going to go into public schools, places of worship, hospitals, right? Every single one of these public institutions run by the state, funded by the federal government in many situations, they get lists, they get patient names, they get birth dates. Oh, there's a removal order. Oh, this person overstayed their visa. Oh, this person has a work authorization that expired that didn't renew. Your nurse checks in on you, your doctor checks in on you, your ICE agent checks in on you. Hey, you missed your appointment a couple weeks ago. Why didn't you show up? Now suddenly, sorry, we're not going to provide this treatment and you're going to be detained. Is that the future, right? Because it looks like that, right? Past year, what we're doing now. Once you hire all these ICE agents, what are they going to do afterwards, right? The next administration, are you just going to fire all these ICE agents? What are they going to do and where are they going to go, right? The field offices don't even have enough seating capacity for all these ICE agents that were hired and continuously be hired, right? In the entire Department of Homeland Security, USCIS is freezing their funding, lowering the number of people they're hiring. CBP has always been hiring, but they can never hire enough. Customs border agents, but all the funding went to ICE, and ICE has hired so many people and rapidly with big bonuses. What are they going to do afterwards, right? Even if a change in administration, what are they going to do? A lot of the lawyers have yesterday met up. I was part of the group. I'm not going to name any names. There's a lot of theories out there. One theory is worksite enforcement is going to ramp up significantly. I'm part of the group that believes that. Worksite enforcement, I-9 audits has historically been low. They have always wanted to ramp it up. They never had the personnel. It was never high priority. Economy wasn't doing that great. It was hard. So why go after the businesses? But that's a high possibility in the future. Going after medium to small businesses on top of the big businesses that have a lot of immigrant populations. And so you're attacking small business owners. You're talking about coffee shops, laundromats, different places, right? So I-9 audits might go up significantly. Some people have been saying there's a high likelihood that this is just one big scare tactic before the World Cup, before the Olympics, wanting to just get rid of as many people, and so they can fix the housing situation. Okay, maybe not. And there's other theories, but we'll take some questions before I kind of finish all the different theories.
So yeah, feel free to put your questions in the chat. One person says, why are they even in the airports if they're not properly trained?
The official reason is crowd control, right? Just help, right? Because you don't want the airports to completely be dysfunctional. That will collapse the U.S. economy. People need to fly. People book these tickets months and years in advance. They need to get to where they're going. So just extra help, right? Think of them as just extra interns walking around learning and facilitating. Any help is better help. But it's terrible, right? Because you know what will help? Just pay the TSA agents, right? That solution will solve everything. But because that is stuck in Congress, the only thing the executive branch can do is just send more aid in. But they could also do something else, right? The president, the White House, the team could just say, all right, we're wrong on this issue. Let's motivate Congress to solve it, and we can solve it right then and now. There's a lack of political will to solve the ICE problem, a lack of political will and ownership to solve this problem. And so now our democracy is stuck in Congress. And so the patchwork solution is to send in ICE agents. Not the best look. Could you send in a National Guard? Could you send in anybody else? So many other quote-unquote interns can go in and do things, right? You don't have to send in ICE agents. I think sending in ICE agents is another signaling. It's another theatrical showmanship to try to make it harder for people who have immigration issues. And this has been ongoing and is always part of the MO, right? This very big theatrics going from city to city, causing chaos, essentially making it as miserable as it's humanly possible for somebody who doesn't have status to be here. And not just people without status, people who, even have work permits, or people who are in the process of getting green cards, right? I have so many clients who have green cards who've decided to leave. I have so many people who are abandoning their green cards. I have so many clients who are in their way of adjustment of status in the U.S. and say, forget this, abandon that, leave, and do the consulate abroad program. Again, I've counseled so many people who just had enough of the nightmare, and they're having mental breakdowns day in and day out, and said, forget it, I'm leaving. And I think that is the intended effect. Unspoken intended effect, but the intended effect nonetheless throughout this past administration, and what we're seeing, and this goes back to what my other friend said, in the past 10 years, there has been so many undocumented people who have crossed the border illegally, and it spiked during COVID times. So the lack of border control caused millions of people who are undocumented to be in the US. You cannot feasibly send law enforcement to get them and to get them out, right? The existing infrastructure, the legal system, the immigration system, everything that's in place makes that absolutely prohibitively cost ineffective, and it will tank the US. So that is not possible. So the only solution that the Republicans have, the only solution Democrats have, but they don't have the political will to do it, is to make it so miserable within the confines of their prerogative, within the confines of their authority, make it so uncomfortable that people leave on their own volition. That is the only way to get rid of people who have crossed the border illegally, who are undocumented. Yes, there's going to be plenty of collateral damage. They understand that, but this is the only way. And that's a theory that many people are saying, right? So if that it holds true, and if you agree with that, and you see what they're doing, and you see a pattern emerge, then the only conclusion you can come to is that it's going to get worse, right? Student visas getting canceled because of traffic violations. It starts with there. Graduating college, you cannot get OPT training. You cannot stay in and work in the U.S. anymore. That's potentially the next step, right? Adjustment of status applications. You trying to get a green card, significantly harder because now public charge is in place. Trying to become a citizen becomes much more difficult. Even if you become a citizen, will denaturalize you if they want to, making the entire environment of the immigrant journey much more difficult in every single stage. And if you cross the border illegally, if you get caught up in ICE, mandatory detention. Circuit courts around the country have been upholding that. Mandatory detention is a thing. Visa waivers, people who come from Canada, people who come from the United Kingdom, people who come from Japan, other partners of the United States, if they come in on a visa waiver and you overstay your visa waiver and you get caught, sorry, everybody else can get bond, but you cannot. You are even less than enemy states of the United States, right? Because you came in on a visa waiver. You waived your right to have bail at immigration court. And so now you are stuck in detention for 3, 6, 9 months. They're making it absolutely harder on every single way. And they look at every single contract and say, hey, it's within our rights. You signed this visa waiver when you wanted to come to the country. Yes, I came in to, buy churros at Disneyland. That doesn't mean I agreed to being detained by ICE for 9 months. It's absolutely insane, but that is the prospect. And so the question that was posed is ICE even going to leave the airports? And so many people who have work permits, who need to travel the country to fix things, to their engineers, they need to do all this stuff. Well, now they can't travel anymore, or they're fearful of traveling because I have a work permit, but what if ICE doesn't recognize that? We know ICE doesn't recognize DACA status, right? Because they say DACA just means deferred deportation. We could deport you if we want to. So, what do you do? If you have status, if you have work authorization, you're traveling domestically, definitely prepare so you can show that. I mean, ICE agents right now, primarily at these domestic airports, crowd control, trying not to get harmed. They, of course, want to catch people who have deportation orders or in removal proceedings, or people who miss their ICE appointments. I need to pause right there again because this just happened last week. A client found out they had a deportation order and they didn't know about it. This is more common than you imagine. How do you even get a deportation order, right? You've been in the country, you lived here, you filed taxes, you think everything is fine, maybe your case was closed. Suddenly somebody reopens it, right? Immigration court is routinely reopening cases that they want to deport. USCIS looking into the previous cases that they've denied but never issued official NTAs, notice of intent to appears, and then they issue it. But guess what? They issued it to your old address that you lived at 3 years ago. You never bothered to update your address. You didn't know about it, whatever. But they issued that, and now suddenly in the system you have a deportation order. You check into DMV, you check into a biometric center, you check in on, on a flight, you land. TSA agent has the name for you and contacts ICE, and suddenly you're arrested. You didn't know you have a deportation order. You didn't know you missed 2 ICE check-ins already. So anyways, clients routinely come to our office. We're doing their paperwork and like, before we file your adjustment, just wanted to check if you have a deportation order or else we can't file it. Check, oh, by the way, you had a deportation order. Did you know that? No. Now we have to do it through court, right? And so I think everybody should definitely, if you are in a situation where you might have a deportation order, if you had a case that was closed, know that it can be reopened at any time. If you had USCIS deny your case and you're in the country unlawfully, know that an NTA might be issued and therefore you might have a removal proceeding against you. These are things to really think about and double check. I lost track of what I was saying.
If you are on DACA.
Okay, what should you do?
Yeah.
Right. If you're on DACA, what should you do? If you are on work authorization, what should you do? So the first thing is make sure you don't have a removal proceeding, deportation order, a nice check-in. Any of those are not great to have when you're traveling. And then carry your authorizations with you, right? We're talking about the work permits. We're talking about the original 797 approval notice from USCIS, right? Those are critical. If your work permit hasn't been approved yet, you're just renewing it, and you don't have work authorization, and you're traveling, and the office they ask you if you're working, that's not a good look, right? So prepare your documents with you when you are on official business, and always have your emergency contact prepared if you are detained and you need to get bailed out, right? There are people with mandatory detention, and that way, I mean, even if you have an emergency contact, you're only letting them know, like, help. But if you are on DACA or if you're on work authorization, you should be able to get bailed out. So let your family, let your friends know about the situation.
Before we often get a question, is it safe to travel on DACA right now, domestically?
Less and less so. But legally, you are able to. And so when you do travel, have your work authorization with you, have your approval notice with you, have your family on standby. Know that there might be TSA agents that's passing your information to ICE. You might see them, you might bump into them. They are not there to detain people who have valid DACA status, but they always have the authority to do that if they want to, right? And I know a lot of people who might be hearing this very first time, they might be shocked, like, no, I have DACA status, I'm legal. To ICE, DACA just means a deferred deportation. So if they don't like you, if you're obstructing their justice, if you're obstructing you just violated your status in a way. So be careful.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to say on this news story?
Yeah. So last night, debating this topic, where is our country going, right? And the trend and the plot seems to be it's getting worse and worse. ICE is getting stronger and stronger with more and more authority, going from city to city, institution to institution. Right now it is the airport that has a problem. What's the next problem? What if the fire department has a problem in different states? What if FEMA has a problem where they need to send disaster relief? Okay, we don't have enough funding, we don't have enough support for disaster relief. Let's send the ICE agents. And so now, if you're trying to file claims, oh, well, the ICE agent's going to show up to do your interview. Oh, you're filing a medical claim. You're filing a Medi-Cal claim. All right, well, we don't have enough staff. We're going to send the ICE agents to now check up on you. This is a pattern, right? Every department, federal and state, is underfunded, overworked, understaffed. And problems are going to rise every day. Who's there to solve it? There's a lot of solutions, but the solution that they choose is to send in the ICE agents. Again, U.S. citizens, not worried. But if you're a U.S. citizen who can't speak English, who don't have your passport, who don't have, your birth certificate, well, how is the ICE supposed to find out if you're a U.S. citizen or not? Detain you, check 3 days, suddenly you die at the detention center. I'm not making this up. It's happened. Terrible news. Why are they doing this? Again, the theory is because they want to make it as uncomfortable as humanly possible so that everyone will leave the United States. And why do they want so many people to leave the United States? Again, there's a lot of theories. Potentially that will improve the housing crisis. Potentially that will allow for more room for legal immigrants to come. Potentially that will just solve other types of problems. Or straight up because they score political points. That's the one I hate the most, right? If there is a strong economic benefit to it, if there's a strong moral and justice argument to it, sure, we can entertain that and debate it. But if it's just because one party can score some political points and or both party fighting over immigration can score them both points, that's another thing to think about, right? Democrats being completely one side, Republicans completely being the other side, that this issue motivates people to go to the booth to get people reelected so that they're not going to fix the problem and keep the problem ongoing. So I hope that's not the case. And I hope that's not the main motivation. I hope that there is actually a solution at play and it's not just theatrics. But this is the world we're living in. A lot of undocumented people came in the past 10 years. The government doesn't have enough strength and power and ability to get them out. So maybe the only solution is just funding ICE to make it so scary so that people leave on their own volition. You strip away their ability to get licenses to work as truck drivers. You strip, mom and pop shops to be able to hire 1099 workers because now they're getting audited for every 1099 cash payment. They have to pay, double, triple the amount. So now nobody could get work. Housing becomes more and more expensive. They cannot live. Inflation becomes so unbearable that they decided to leave. Is that the gameplay? I don't know. If ICE agents are at your, parent-teacher conferences, if ICE agents are at your hospitals, if ICE agents are at your travels, if ICE agents are at every single, DMV, is this a place worth living still? If the answer is no, everybody leaves, will that make the United States better? Is that the way to make America great? Well, this seems to be the playbook right now, right? And so I'm afraid the answer to the question, when are ICE agents going to leave the airports? The answer has to be, they've always been there and they are not leaving. It's just whether or not they're going to be behind the scenes or in front. And worse yet, where else will they go next? I think that's something that we have to reflect and think about, especially this midterm election.
So I did my biometric for a change of status, but they only took my photo, not fingerprints or signature or anything like that. Is that normal?
Some cases, they do that. I don't remember exactly which ones.
This was a U visa to get a green card.
Okay. I have definitely seen that happen, where it's just photo.
What is petty offense exemption for citizenship?
Great question. Off the top of my head, if I remember correctly, it is any misdemeanor with a potential conviction of less than 1 year, right? So the maximum penalty that you can have, that the judge, the jury can rule against you is 1 year, more than 1 year of jail time. If it's less than that, they consider petty offense. So don't quote me on that. Check with ChatGPT, check online. That's my recollection. It's a single offense. It's not repeated. But the key is, and a lot of lawyers get this mixed up, it's the maximum potential, not what's actually served. Because most people never serve the maximum, right? So we've had clients, people who served less than a year, but the maximum was far more than that. Or they were supposed to serve more than a year, but then they got reduced sentence, and then they thought they were fine, but it wasn't fine. So
Yeah, it's a nightmare right now. My husband has been waiting on his adjustment for 8 years, and he applied for travel documents, but I advise not to travel even if he gets it approved because it's so chaotic right now.
I don't know why it's been 8 years. That seems a really long time. There's certain types of clients who are stuck like that, like EP5 clients or people from Indian nationality who got like a crazy backlog at a certain point in time. But adjustment status usually takes 1, 2, 3 years. Is already a significantly long time. 8 years is definitely long. But if you are in the process of adjustment and it is a good adjustment case, and you get the travel authorization, that just means USCIS approved you. That doesn't mean the customs officer will approve you, and that certainly doesn't mean the customs officer will allow you in, or the officer might not give it to ICE, right? So you definitely want to do a case-by-case analysis once he gets the work permit and travel authorization.
My husband is stuck in Mexico due to a 10-year perm bar in 2017, so he's about to finish.
Yes.
I'm a citizen. What is next? For reference, he went to an appointment in Juarez. He had apps all approved, I-130 and 601A.
Wonderful. So the next step is to reactivate the National Visa Center and the consulate, right? Your I-130 has been already approved, so that will always be approved. So once that time hits, then immediately apply for a National Visa Center, continue the immigration processing, and go back to the interview. But know that it is a new interview. It's a new National Visa DS-260 application, right? Everything is under the new framework that this administration has for consulates. Public charge is a significant reason. We just saw a couple circuit court cases starting to deny people on public charge. So prepare well. Prove that when he comes to the U.S., he will be a net contributor to the U.S. He will not become a burden on the United States government. He has work. He's a healthy, able body. He's healthy himself. He's able to work. He's able to fund. He doesn't have any criminal records. It's no longer just, oh, he is, the spouse of a U.S. citizen. He meets the basic eligibility. He can come in, he can get a green card. It's no longer that, right? To get a green card, you need to jump through so many other additional hoops.
I'm about to remove conditions. My husband is in hospice care. What can I do? I'm the MM.
I don't know what MM means, but if you're about to remove conditions, I'm assuming you got the conditional green card and you're filing for your 10-year removal condition to get your 10-year green card. And if your husband is, you guys are still together, then you're just proving that your marriage is real. And so if he's in hospice care, you're taking care of him. You prepare everything well. Your case should be fine because it's based on whether or not your marriage is real.
His previous follow-up, the adjustment of status for 8 years, it was initially delayed due to the pandemic, and since then it just has been dragging, but we don't know why.
It is still far too long. 8 years is far too long. So double check. You might want to file a mandamus action in the U.S., sue the government and get the green card, right? We filed plenty of mandamus actions when it's so unreasonable, and the case gets approved within a month. 8 years is pretty ridiculous.
And what are some things to know about the mandamus?
Yeah, so basically you're going to federal court and you're saying, hey, this administration is not doing their job, right? Something that should take 20 minutes, 30 minutes is now taking 8 years. Other people get it in 6 months. Why do I take 8 years, right? And so you really sue them. And then maybe your file was lost and now they finally go find this person's file. Oh, we don't have it. Call them in for an interview, apologize to you, refill out the form, approve on the spot, right? So 8 years is really unacceptable. Now, if there's a huge backlog, if there's admin processing, if there's background check, if there's criminal records, okay, maybe USCIS has a good defense on why this case should take 8 years or longer. But if not, then you deserve to get your green card now.
And about how much do mandamuses typically cost?
I've seen anywhere between 5,000 to 15,000 legal fee, and then court filing fee. It depends, right? Because some mandamuses is like 2-3 months. Some take a year or more to sue. depends on your case. It sounds like you have a really good case because you waited for 8 years, so it should be a relatively simple case. The mandamus that we usually take is like class action, where we sue, on behalf of a lot of people all at once. Yeah.
And is this the kind of thing you can file yourself if it's, no criminal record?
You know, 2-3 years ago, I would probably say no. This is probably something that is really hard. But if you're smart with ChatGPT, read a few books, why not? Like we're in that age now, right? So you could get the brief, you could understand the process, you can understand so much if you spend the time and effort to kind of learn everything and do it yourself. And then when you get stuck on a certain thing, just pay a consultation, right, to kind of give guidance. I mean, we've done so many mandamuses that it's like, yeah, a smart kid from college could probably do this, right?
The immigration lawyer's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we teach our college student interns to do all of these, right? And so with a little bit of guidance with ChatGPT, understanding the process, it's not rocket science. I mean, because when you sue mandamus, you're suing the government for not doing their job, right? And that's the essential argument. Something should take 20 minutes. You can't take 8 years. That's a violation of my civil liberties, right? You go to DMV, everybody else gets approved. They tell you to come back next week again and again and again for 8 years. Are you kidding me, right? Of course you're going to sue them.
Then, someone says, I'm with you. The ICE agents are taking advantage of the situation. They're using intimidation tactics.
ICE agents are just people who got a job, I wouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt that they're using tactics and strategy. This is a situation, the upper command gave out what they need to do, and they just go and do it, I've seen ICE agents, I've worked with ICE agents, a lot of them feel like, high school football buddies, it's a job. It's a security guard. They're just taking orders. Unfortunately, the orders sometimes lack a lot of sense, right? Problem at the airport. Fix it by just paying the TSA agents. Why send ICE unless you have some alternative motive? It's not the ICE agents themselves thinking of these grand plans. That's the unfortunate situations.
I'm an Estonian national born in Belarus, which is a country on the pause list. So national of Estonia, born in Belarus. My petitioner wrongly stated on the I-140 that my country of birth is Estonia. Remember, Estonian national, Belarus born. Incorrectly stated on the form. My priority date is current now. Am I eligible for an EB-3, or will the embassy not issue it given that I was born in Belarus?
Wait, so the actual birthplace is the 75 country ban?
I believe 75 country ban is nationality. So I think dual nationality, if you're Belarus and Estonian, I believe.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. So first, because you are born in a country that has the ban, the consulate is going to scrutinize your case more. And now they're going to have to apply that exception that if you have a separate nationality, they may grant it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is there's this typo on your I-130. The consulate can correct that. So not something to completely stress over. It was a mistake, it was a typo, but your underlying petition and everything in the prior date is all ripe and current, so you can still petition and hopefully you can still get approved.
So like two issues. There's the mistake on the, okay, I see. So what about JFK Airport for re-entering on LPR re-entry after too long abroad?
Yeah, so here's the more objective thing to look at, right? big airports are usually better than small airports. Airports who see your people and your circumstance and they understand your circumstance is better than people who've never seen it and don't really know. And so generally speaking, JFK, LAX see probably the most diverse amount of people from all around the world. One's on the East Coast, one's on the West Coast. And so those are some of the best airports to go to. Now, land border is probably a little bit better than the airports, and then the Mexico border is probably better than the Canada border if you have a complicated issue.
For theirs, they say it's been 8 years.
Oh, jeez.
Left during COVID. Green card expired. Didn't get re-entry because office was closed.
Yeah, don't. Well, first, I think you'll have a hard time getting on an airplane. Second, if you do get on the airplane, it's almost 100% chance that the CBP officer will not admit you or detain you or pass you over to ICE. And we've already seen that happen. I do not recommend flying to JFK or LAX. At the very, very best, prepare your case and try to liaison and persuade and convince a border officer, whether that's Canada or Mexico, to admit you. But even then, it's going to be extremely hard.
Okay, feel free to keep adding any more questions. My SEVIS got terminated 4 months ago. I got a new I-120 from the university. Do I still have to exit and re-enter with a new I-20 or file a reinstatement?
Say that again?
My SEVIS got terminated 4 months ago. I got a new I-20 from a university. Do I still have to exit and enter with the new I-20 or do I file a reinstatement?
So either of those will work, or go to the consulate and come back with a new visa, right? So those are the three solutions. If your SEVIS account has been terminated, you got a new I-20, that doesn't mean it's activated. You need to activate it somehow, and there's only 3 ways to activate it. One way is you file reinstatement and USCIS activates it for you. And now you can officially go to the new school and activate it. So we've done plenty of reinstatement videos on our YouTube channel, so you can check that out. The second way to activate it is to go back to your home country, go back to the embassy, get a new F1 visa, and come back with activating the new I-20. And again, it's a CBP officer at the airport activating it, right? The third option is if you still have your passport that's valid, if you still have your visa, F1 visa that's valid, albeit it is on the old I-20, that's okay. You leave the country, you go back to the border, you use your passport and your F1 visa and your new I-20 and a couple other things, and you show the officer, hey, I want to go to the new school, please. They review, they ask you questions, you're able to answer appropriately, they admit you, they activate the new I-20. So those are 3 ways to activate the I-20.
I had my visa interview in February, and I received a 221G letter due to the immigrant visa pause. However, I noticed that my case was updated in March, just a few days ago. Why would there be an update if my case was still under the pause?
No, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't look too much into it. Yeah, USCIS system, consulate system, update things. Yep.
How do I apply for the InfoPass re-entry expedite appointment?
I'm assuming, I need a lot more context. InfoPass is at the field office, right? And so just look up the number, call the InfoPass, and see if you can schedule InfoPass. And then if you can schedule it, then you go to the appointment. If they don't give you the InfoPass appointment, then you could just go emergency and just show up at any field office and say this is an emergency and ask them if you could do it. Those are the 2 ways for InfoPass. If you're asking about the 551 added stamp, that's a different thing. Kind of similar, but it's kind of different. That you can try to call and apply online. And then maybe they will be able to give it to you and mail it to you, or maybe they're going to make you go in person.
I'm going through the K-1 process, and I got a notice from USCIS saying they sent their case to the Department of State for visa processing. This is regarding the immigrant pause. So I haven't heard from them for a while, but so they sent my case to DOS for processing. Does this mean K1s are not on pause?
Well, the whole pause is at the last step. So everything still works all the way until they need to print the little visa sticker and put in your passport. That's the thing that's paused. So just think of it like the printer is broken, all right? Just think the visa printer is broken. That's what the pause means. So USCIS is still processing I-129Fs, transferring it to National Visa Center. They're still processing things, and then the consulate is still scheduling interviews. You still have to fill out the DS 160 to 260. You still have to do everything. But after the interview, everything is approved. Well, the printer is broken, right? That's what that means. And then once the lights are back on, they could plug the printer back in, the pause is lifted, then they could print out the visas and then put it in the passports and give it to you.
Can you help my fashion designer friend get an EB1A or EB2 NIW?
We haven't done a fashion one yet, but if they qualify, happy to talk about it, right? We've done it for dumpling chefs, we've done it for accountants, we've done it for business owners, done it for celebrities, politicians. Fashion designer will be fun.
Okay, so feel free to add any more questions. Wow, this one is a harsh one. So this is about reentry, LPR reentry.
Okay.
Those who try to enter the country illegally are violating immigration laws. You lawyers, for the sake of money, devise ways for these lawbreakers to enter the country and break the law. You are a disgrace to the Chinese people.
Great comment. There's a small, interesting fallacy there. There are people who enter the country illegally, and then they are able to get a green card. Why? And I think it's the majesty of the immigration law where it allows for exceptions. And some of the exceptions is that somebody who crossed the border illegally or somebody who's illegally here, maybe B2 visa overstay, but because they got married to a US citizen, because if you remove them, it will cause them extreme hardship, the 601 waiver, if you could prepare that well, they can still get a green card. Now, are we doing things illegal or are we doing things what Congress intended, right? And so because Congress, because of justice, because of the system that has been created, the rule of law, where there are these exceptions, people can get it. I love that. I love that about the immigration law. It's one of the most sophisticated, in-depth, and they think of all these exceptions, right? You are a petitioner, but you passed away, and your children, they can get a green card still, but under certain circumstances. One of them should be in the United States. So even if the main person, the main petitioner passes away, the dependents can still all get green cards, right? These are small exceptions that very few other immigration laws around the world they have, but the United States have, right? Grandparents can pass on their citizenship to their grandchildren, but you have to meet these conditions, right? If a parent becomes a citizen, a child can automatically become a citizen. You know, you can adopt somebody and then they can get a green card. You know, all these nuances is so special. Now, if somebody is scheming so that you can bring illegal people into the country, work and traffic them, that is a crime, and many people have been arrested for that. And if that is where your heart is, where you really hate, you know, professionals who are trafficking people, who are doing illicit activity, who are bringing like domestic servants and locking them in basements, working unlawfully, gaming the immigration system, creating fake marriages, I'm with you. That is a straight violation of immigration law and federal law and criminal law. And a lot of people have been arrested for that. If you just search FBI stuff, there's plenty of that. But if it's a person who's in a very unfortunate situation, they came in as a tourist, they came in as a K1 visa, but then the US citizen abused them. And then they got divorced and they're filing for a 751 waiver. They were monitored, they had their passports taken away from them, they were verbally, mentally abused. they're in a very desperate place. They're without status because the U.S. citizen tricked them over. As an immigration lawyer, do we help them? Do we not help them? I'm very proud of my team in that they were able to help so many of these people still get green cards because the immigration law allows for it. And you know what? What if immigration law doesn't allow for it, right? What if the CSPA law is unclear? Whether or not a child who's 29 years old, can they still be 21 years old and 19 years old? Because the law is written unclear. Should an immigration lawyer help them or not help them? It's been our belief that we press and zealously advocate for our client. And even if it's in a gray area, we try our best to argue. And if it doesn't succeed, we tried our best. But we've seen a lot of cases get successful. So that's why I love my job. And hopefully that makes America better.
So you don't think you're a disgrace?
I definitely don't think I'm a disgrace.
Can you please provide an update on when the immigrant visa pause is expected to be lifted?
Oh, the same country? I think I say this pretty often, but I definitely think that is going to go on for a long time. I think it might last this entire administration, unfortunately.
Yeah, there hasn't been like any updates, right?
Not that I know of, yeah.
Can you travel back to your country with an asylum-based green card? Does that make any sense? If you're applying for asylum because you're in danger, why would you go back?
Yeah. So CBP officers don't like it. Lawyers don't advise clients to do it. Clients sometimes do it. Sometimes they get away with it. Some people get in trouble. So that's kind of like the facts, right? It kind of doesn't make sense, but in certain circumstances, it's excusable and understandable, and it might be okay. Enough time has passed. You had a name change. There's an emergency situation, right? But here's the clear-cut, terrible situation where you're almost guaranteed to get in a problem. You came into the country, you filed for asylum, you got the green card, and then you just travel back and forth frequently. And in fact, you actually go back and you stay there for a long time, and then that CBP officer, when they look at it, they will definitely ding you. I mean, you got the asylum, you got the green card, you became a citizen, it's been 10 years, it's been 15 years, you finally flew back, your dad's funeral, that's understandable.
Okay. I received a 212F notice for my spousal visa. This is about the immigrant pause. Does this mean we have to reapply? The officer told me once the ban is lifted, they can reissue the visa, but some people are saying you have to reapply.
You have to reapply for the interview, I think, right? So the DS-260, I don't think you have to refill it. I mean, obviously, if it's like 3-4 years later, maybe they will make you. But generally, everything has already been done. You have to go back to the interview, update them, and then they will approve it. So maybe you have to fill out the, DS-260 again or DS-160, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of people, these are responding to comments in some of our previous videos about people who have been outside the U.S. for 6 years and they come in. And a lot of people are saying, well, they were out for this year. Everyone knows if you're out for this long, you abandon your green card. So she's not above the law. People shouldn't be allowed to re-enter. What do you think about that?
I see. Well, I think that's a misunderstanding of what the law is, right? The law is not like a speeding ticket. It's not like a speed limit. It's like you have to be in the U.S. for 180 days, and if you leave the U.S. for over a year, you automatically abandon. That's not the way the law is written, nor I think any reasonable person, if you were in Congress, you wouldn't write the law like that either, right? Because it doesn't make sense. You want people to be in the United States. If you've got a lawful permanent resident and you should live here, but if you don't, you can apply for reentry permits. You should be allowed to leave. But what if you didn't apply and then you did leave and you want to come back? Under what circumstances should you be let in? Should you not be let in? That's what you should be thinking about, right? And that's the way the law is kind of written. And so the CBP officer is in that position where they have to judge, did this person abandon the green card or not? So what's the difference between 1 year, 1.5, 2, 5, 9, 13? There's no clear red line, so it's up to each individual officer to make that determination. And some officers don't want to. They say, that's above my pay grade. Sorry, I'm here to stamp passports. I'm going to confiscate the green card and I'm going to give it to an immigration judge. Some officers do that. Some officer says, you know what, it's above my pay grade, but you know, Bob, my senior watchman commander, he doesn't have anything to do. I'll let him decide that, right? And so take the green card, pass it over to deferred inspection. Different officers can adjudicate things differently. Right now, the trend we're seeing is that a lot of times, if it's too long, they don't even want to listen. They don't want to do paperwork. Confiscate green card, give you an NTA, you explain it to the judge, right? So you can imagine during times of COVID, during times of Russia, Ukraine, Afghanistan withdrawal, some people can't fly back, right? Not everybody in their life circumstance is just a normal human being. There are political forces in place that they cannot come back. And that's why I love immigration law, where it is flexible and it's up to an officer to make that judgment. It is not a math equation. You've been here for 5 months, you left the US, you come back for 5 months, you didn't abandon green card. Somebody else left the US for 1 year and 1 day, they abandoned green card, right? Law is not a mathematical equation, nor should it be. So in this case, left the US for 6 years. It is a long time. Left the US for 2 years is a long time. But every case is different. And I think in probably over the 100 videos that we've done, talking about people who left the country for a significant amount of time, I share with you their story. I share with you their arguments because I represented them to talk to the officer about these arguments. And these are the arguments that the officer found sufficient. You might disagree. I might disagree. But at the end of the day, it's up to the officer to decide. And we try to use the best arguments possible, right? There was COVID. Their mom passed away. Their dad passed away. They got fired from their job. They were in a lawsuit. The government took their passports away. They could not fly back. Different arguments, but the officer listens. They understand. You were 12 years old when your family took you back to Asia, and then they didn't let you travel. They put you in international school. Now, 4 years later, 6 years later, you graduated high school. You got into an Ivy League. You want to come to school now. Should I let you in? Should I not let you in? Should your parents' decision to take you away mean you abandoned your green card? Should the fact that you don't have a U.S. house because you're a child mean you don't have a U.S. residence? All these things, the officer has to balance it in a split second. What do you think, right? Our job is to try to help the clients do the best so that they can come in. And I'm glad it works. All right, success story. A hardware store owner who wants to fix kitchen cabinets from Taiwan wants to come to the United States. In 2025, retained us, we prepared the entire E2 package. They did the business plan, prepared everything. They went in for the interview. We thought it was a pretty good case because they were a hardware kitchen company that sell, mattresses and hardware and design. They want to come here. They invested I think they invested close to $300,000 to start a business to sell kitchen cabinets. And they invested $300,000 and they have over $400,000 to $500,000 worth of equipment here in the U.S. assets between cash and hardware to be able to fund. It seemed like a good case. The client was extremely nervous. They went to AIT and their case got canceled or just denied, right? ESTA got denied, so they cannot come. They already invested so much money. It was a very troubling situation. The whole family was planning on coming. Kids were planning to go to school. How can this be? We were disheartened. They were disheartened. There's a couple theories why the case failed, but regardless of why it failed, the next immediate solution is to get a B1, B2 visa. For anybody who doesn't know, if you're from a visa waiver country, if you're coming from a place that allows for visa waivers, Singapore, Japan, the United Kingdom, most people in those countries, Canada too, most people in those countries do not go to the consulate to get a visa. because by their passport, they could just apply for a visa waiver. They could come in and out of the US relatively freely. And because most people don't get a visa, when your visa waiver is denied, now you are forced to get a visa. And so it is extremely hard to get a B1, B2 tourist visa. But this client has to because their E2 got denied. So are they a tourist? No, they already invested close to $500,000 to start up their business here. They're clearly wanting to work. They had employees. So we prepared them for the B1, B2 interview. We provided them the law. I think it's actually pretty important. I'll read this, right? An applicant seeking investment in the United States, including an investment that will qualify them for a status such as an E2 non-immigrant investor, is not ineligible for a B visa on that basis alone. So that's a double negative, right? So essentially somebody who's doing an E2 visa is eligible for a B visa. But anyway, the way they phrased it in law is somebody who's doing this is not ineligible for a B visa. And then they go on to talk about similarly, if somebody who's doing an EP5, it is not ineligible as well, right? So somebody who is a tourist can invest, even if your intent is to start a business later on and to change the status, etc. So we prepared everything. Our client, their E2 was denied because the consular officer did not believe their business is big enough, strong enough to sustain a family of 3 to be in the United States. They didn't meet the marginality test. Fine. Please allow me to get the B1 visa so we can come to the US, improve the business, and I will go back and reapply, right? We always do this. We've been doing this for decades now. It worked. Again, thank goodness. It doesn't always work, but it worked. The client was able to get the B1, B2 visa. They came in, improved the funding, hired 1 additional worker, right? So before it was just them and a part-time worker. They hired 1 additional full-time worker. They improved the finances. They didn't do more investment, but they got the revenue up now, and they did a few more other things to improve the E2 application. We reapplied at the end of 2025. They just went into the interview in January. Case got approved. Now the whole family can come on E2. You know, I'm glad the client didn't give up. I'm glad our team didn't give up. Everybody was blindsided. It was such a good investment. It was such a good business. And the reason why we said it was good is because, you know, for like decades, they worked in a kitchen cabinet company, in their own company. And to be able to have this much money to invest in the US, they were quite successful. They built up a brand for themselves. They have a unique factory, a new way of doing things. It's pretty good. And now they want to come to the US to do it. And so many people around the world do this, right? They are successful in their own country, but they want a better future for their children, so they're investing. In this case, almost $300,000 to start a business, to ship over all the supplies, hire US workers, provide great service, great product, in order just to be able to live and work in the United States. And once they do that, additional funds come in. They're going to buy a house, they're going to buy cars, they're going to consume American goods, and the children's going to go to school and they're going to go to college, and and then the children have to find a way to stay in the United States. But this E2 is something that so many countries around the world, they do. But it's getting harder and harder. And in this case, you know, they did their own business plan. Usually we have the clients do it because it's their business. They understand it better than anybody else. But they were very, their English wasn't that great. They were extremely nervous, and so they failed. After this whole ordeal, after additional practice, finally they got it. And I hope the takeaway from this story is that don't take no for an answer, right? If your E2 gets denied, don't just give up. You know, we keep on pushing. We got the B1, B2 visa, came in, make the business better, and redo the E2, and then get it successful, right? It is not the end of the world. The case can be built better. It's a hiccup. You know, should they have done a better job the first time? Maybe, but on hindsight, you never know. It was a good case. They were extremely nervous. Should we have practiced maybe 3 extra times? Maybe. You know, like there's a lot of things that we learned from these, right? And I mean, now going forward, maybe the clients, if their English is not good, we will maybe offer, hey, I do think you should do a couple more practice rounds. Do you want to do that, right? We try to save the client's cost. You know, it's a set fee. Clients previously have always gotten approved, but maybe for you, because you're stuttering, let's do a couple extra practice rounds, right? So anyways, all in all, E2 applications are getting much more difficult. A case such as this one with 2 employees didn't get approved. We got through the 3rd employee, and then now the case got approved. We improved the revenue, right? In the past, E2 with just a business plan could get approved. This, the revenue, they wanted to see 1 quarter, 2 quarter, 3 quarters of revenue. I mean, I'll give you some more facts, right, just to help out. Let's see. They had net income of, in 2024, they have net income of over 60,000. By the end of the year, they had net income of over 260,000. In 2025, they have assets of close to 500,000, and they have net income of 30+ thousand. So again, this is a business that's been in operation for 2025, 2024, and 2025, and their E2 still got denied. And then in 2026, after we redid everything, then in 2026 they got approved, right? So a lot of people think, oh, I'll just incorporate a business, have a business plan, invest, spend a bunch of money. Within 3 months to 6 months, I'll go to the consulate, get an E2 visa. It's not as simple anymore. Some cases still get approved. We've definitely done it. But in this case, because, again, a family of 3, your net income barely covers one person's salary, are you really going to succeed? It's a big question mark. It's so competitive in the US, especially in the kitchen cabinet arena, right? Everybody, so many people around the world have factories that do kitchen cabinets. What makes you special? They had to work a lot harder to make that happen. But ultimately, the case was successful. Happy to share it was Andy's team that pushed this out, so props to him. Happy for him and happy that he didn't give up, the clients didn't give up, and we were able to secure this win. But I think having some hiccups and denials along the way and pushing through makes definitely a much more valuable learning experience. So we definitely want to share this with you. Hopefully it's helpful. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.